In the year 1919, just after the Great War, Europe was in ruins. Nations were broken. Economies collapsed. Men returned from the trenches not as heroes, but as shadows of themselves. It was in this atmosphere of despair that Carl Jung encountered a man unlike any he had ever seen. His name was Heinrich, a German industrialist, the kind of man who, in the middle of rubble and starvation, built a steel empire from nothing. But Heinrich did not come to Jung as a patient. He was brought by his wife. Her words shocked Jung.
"Doctor, there is something wrong with my husband. He doesn't get angry. Not at insults, not at betrayal, not even at me."
She recounted a story that left Jung silent.
"I confessed to him that I have been unfaithful for 6 months. Do you know what he did? He did not shout. He did not collapse. He asked me 3 questions. Am I happy? Do I need anything from him? And do I wish to continue our marriage or end it?"
This was no ordinary detachment. This was no mask of composure hiding rage beneath. Heinrich was not suppressing his emotions. He was beyond them. In the world of business, he was equally strange. His competitors despised him, not because he crushed them with cruelty, but because they could not move him. Scandals, betrayals, rumors. Nothing could provoke a reaction. One partner even stole his largest client, an act that would have broken any man. Heinrich's response? Curiosity. He wanted to understand, not to retaliate. His employees were terrified, but not because he was violent. They feared him because his calm was unbreakable. They felt as though they were working under a man carved from stone, a man whose silence was heavier than any shout. And in his community, people whispered about him. Some called him a saint. Others said he was inhuman. But Jung saw something else, a kind of psychological transformation that bordered on the supernatural. To Jung, Heinrich embodied a disturbing possibility, that the human mind could evolve beyond the reach of ordinary insult, beyond the chains of reactivity. Not a numbness, not indifference, but a higher form of mastery, where another's betrayal was not an attack, but a mirror, where an insult did not wound, but revealed. Heinrich stood before Jung as living proof that the psyche could construct an invisible fortress, impenetrable, untouchable, and Jung began to ask, how does a man become this way? What lies beyond the threshold of anger, where most of us are enslaved? And what would it cost to live in a world where nothing can touch you? As Jung studied Heinrich, he began to realize that this man had stumbled upon a truth most people never see. Every insult, every act of betrayal, every humiliation was not an external attack. It was a mirror, a reflection of the hidden corners of the human psyche. Jung named this process the shadow mirror. Think of the colleague who constantly dismisses your ideas. On the surface, it looks like arrogance, but in the mirror, it reflects your own hidden fear of inadequacy. Think of the friend who betrays your trust. It feels like cruelty, but in the mirror, it reveals your own buried capacity for selfishness. Think of the family member who criticizes every decision you make. You hear judgment, but in the mirror you see the echo of your own self-doubt. Heinrich did not see enemies around him. He saw teachers, unwilling guides who forced him to confront the parts of himself he would rather ignore. This was not weakness. It was a dangerous kind of strength, because just once you learn to use others as mirrors, they lose their power to wound you. Jung was disturbed because this turned ordinary human conflict upside down. Most of us live as slaves to projection. We hurl our insecurity onto others. We attack what we secretly fear in ourselves. We fight monsters outside, blind to the monsters within. But Heinrich had inverted the process. Instead of projecting outward, he reflected inward. When insulted, he asked, "What in me does this reveal?" When betrayed, he asked, "What shadow of mine is being shown?" When criticized, he asked, "What self-doubt is echoing back at me?" It is a terrifying practice, because the shadow mirror forces you to admit the enemy is not out there. The enemy lives in you. But Jung saw in Heinrich the result of such courage, a man untouchable because no insult could show him anything he had not already faced within himself. And so, the first step towards psychological immunity is not to fight your enemies, but to look into the mirror they unknowingly hold up before you. Most of us live chained to a single sequence, stimulus, then reaction. Someone insults you, and anger bursts out. Someone betrays you, and despair consumes you. The trigger and the response feel inseparable, as if welded together by nature itself. But Heinrich had discovered something hidden, a space in between. He described it to Jung in words that sounded almost supernatural. "When someone insults me, time slows. Their words hang in the air before me, suspended like arrows frozen in flight. And in that moment, I can decide, will I let these words pierce me, or will I let them fall to the ground as if they never belonged to me?" This is what Jung called the reaction gap, the space between stimulus and response. It is in this invisible gap that true freedom is born. Most humans do not notice it. The insult lands, and they explode. The betrayal strikes, and they collapse. To them, anger is automatic, humiliation is inevitable. But those who discover the reaction gap learn that between the trigger and the response lies a moment of choice, and choice is power. The Stoics spoke of this long before Jung. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." The Buddhists spoke of it too. Zen masters called it mushin, no mind. The swordsman sees the strike, but does not cling to fear. The words of an enemy pass through him like wind through empty space. Heinrich was living proof of these ancient truths in a modern age of chaos. Jung realized to find the reaction gap is to break the chains of psychological slavery. Where others react, you remain still. Where others collapse, you remain centered. Where others lose themselves, you become author of yourself. This was the second key to Heinrich's untouchability. Not merely to see others as mirrors, but to discover within himself the space where no one else could enter. And Jung began to wonder, what would happen if more people learned to step into this space? Would we become free, or something even more dangerous? Jung soon noticed that Heinrich's power went beyond the reaction gap. It was not only that he could pause between stimulus and response. He had built an invisible fortress, what Jung called the boundary fortress. Most people walk through life with no walls at all. They absorb the anger of their boss. They carry the insecurities of their friends. They internalize the chaos of strangers. Their identity is invaded daily by emotions that are not even theirs. But Heinrich was different. He had built boundaries that no insult could cross. Jung described 3 walls within Heinrich's fortress. The relevance filter. Heinrich absorbed only what served his growth. Everything else was acknowledged, but not internalized. Imagine standing in the middle of a crowd, hearing insults, praise, gossip, and lies. but choosing which words even enter your mind. The ownership boundary. Heinrich knew what was his and what belonged to others. If a man raged at him, Heinrich saw clearly, this is his anger, not mine. Most of us borrow the emotions of others and call them our own. Heinrich refused. The identity fortress. At the core, his sense of self was unshakable. No criticism could touch it. No praise could inflate it. He could hear feedback without confusing it with judgment of his worth. But Heinrich's fortress had another weapon, what Jung called projection reversal. Ordinary men collapse under attack. An insult makes them defensive. A humiliation breaks their pride. But Heinrich reversed the flow. He used every attack to see through the attacker. One rival accused him publicly of being a heartless profiteer. Most men would have defended themselves or struck back in rage. But Heinrich simply observed, "This man has revealed nothing about me. He has revealed everything about himself." The accusation of heartlessness exposed the rival's own fear of being cruel. The focus on profit revealed his own financial insecurity. Even his concern for workers was a confession of guilt about how he mistreated his own. This was Heinrich's gift, psychological X-ray vision. He could see through masks, past words, into the wounds beneath. Jung realized the disturbing truth of projection reversal. Most human conflict is not real. People are not fighting you, they are fighting their own shadows, projected onto your face. When they attack your appearance, they reveal their own insecurity. When they attack your success, they reveal their own envy. When they attack your choices, they reveal their own doubt. Heinrich told Jung, "When someone insults me, I see a wounded child lashing out in pain. How can I be angry at a child for crying?" With his boundary fortress, their chaos could not cross his walls. With projection reversal, he could see their wounds more clearly than they could. It made him powerful, but it also made him dangerous, because once you pierce the illusions that bind ordinary men, you no longer play their games. But Heinrich's transformation did not end with boundaries. Jung discovered that he had mastered something far more dangerous, what he called emotional alchemy. Most people see insults as poison. They try to block them, suppress them, or strike back with equal venom. But Heinrich had learned to drink the poison and turn it into medicine. He explained it simply. "I no longer see difficult people as problems to avoid. I see them as teachers, bringing me the exact lessons I need for growth." A rival's betrayal became an invitation to examine his own hidden greed. A critic's insult became a chance to confront his own self-doubt. Every wound became raw material to forge strength. This was not mere endurance. It was a reversal of psychology itself. The Stoics hinted at this long ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." For Heinrich, the insult was no longer an obstacle. It was the path itself. Nietzsche called this amor fati, the love of one's fate. To not only endure hardship, but to embrace it, to hunger for it, to transform it into power. Heinrich's enemies tried to break him with cruelty, but every attempt only made him stronger. Their insults became his practice. Their betrayals became his training. Their hatred became the forge that tempered his will. Jung called this the most disturbing stage of all, when every trigger becomes fuel, when every opponent becomes an unwitting ally in your growth, when nothing in the external world can weaken you because you have turned every blow into gold. This was emotional alchemy, the secret that turned Heinrich into something untouchable. But Jung also saw the danger hidden in Heinrich's transformation. To become untouchable is powerful, but it is also isolating. Heinrich confessed to Jung, "Doctor, I feel like the only adult in a world of wounded children. I can see through everyone's masks so clearly that I struggle to take their dramas seriously." This was the shadow of immunity, detachment. When you see insults as projections, betrayals as lessons, enemies as teachers, the human games of pride, anger, and jealousy begin to look like playthings for children. And in that clarity, a man can become a god or an exile. But Jung believed there was one more stage, a higher form of strength he called the compassionate warrior. The one who does not merely stand apart, but uses his immunity as a bridge. The one who remains untouched by the chaos of others, yet holds space for their suffering. To Heinrich, this meant transformation once again. At first, his calm unsettled people. They felt small before it, exposed. But with Jung's guidance, he learned that true strength was not a wall. It was a presence. When his wife wept, he did not collapse, but neither did he withdraw. He stood still, letting her grief move around him without absorbing it, yet without abandoning her. When his employees panicked in crisis, he did not take on their fear. He simply remained grounded, and in his presence, they found their own calm. Jung realized the final stage of psychological immunity is not cold indifference. It is the paradox of being vulnerable and invulnerable at once. To feel the pain of others without being consumed by it. To witness their chaos without becoming chaotic. To remain free but also deeply human. This was the compassionate warrior, not a man above humanity, but a man strong enough to carry humanity without losing himself. Carl Jung's most disturbing discovery was not that some people never get angry. It was that this power exists in every human being, dormant, waiting. Every insult you receive is a mirror. Every betrayal is a lesson. Every humiliation is raw material for transformation. Heinrich's path revealed the stages, the shadow mirror, where enemies become teachers, the reaction gap where freedom is born, the boundary fortress where no one's chaos can cross your walls, the projection reversal where every attack reveals the attacker, the emotional alchemy where poison becomes fuel, and finally the compassionate warrior, the one who remains untouchable yet still human. Jung recorded Heinrich's final words. True strength is not what cannot touch you. It is what you can touch without being changed by it. And so your path begins. Every trigger you face is an invitation. Every conflict, a mirror. Every storm, a chance to discover the stillness no one can take from you. You are not a prisoner of your reactions. You are the author of them, and once you accept this, you will walk through the world untouchable.